Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Board Game Buys. This is where I talk about all of the games that I have acquired over the last month or so. This episode covering January 2024, and I only have 7 games here to talk about, so it shouldn't be too long of a video. But before I start talking about the games, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's start with the first game here, which is Gin. Now, Gin has actually been on my radar for a while now. It's not been widely available in the UK up until recently, and since it has, I wanted to grab a copy pretty sharpish and get it played. And I have played it a couple of times. I'm going to hold off on sharing my thoughts until I release my review, which should be fairly soon. But this is like a medium to medium lightweight Euro, 60 to 90 minutes, and actually feels somewhat of a Stefan Feld style game, even though it's not Stefan Feld. I don't think I've played a single game from this designer before, but basically you're going to be travelling around this map, visiting these different action spaces, collecting resources, and trying to capture these genies, or these gins, in these bottles and score points that way. There's a bit of engine building, stuff like that, so fairly standard stuff, but I did like that kind of tangible nature of the game of wanting to capture genies in those bottles and map out that efficiency puzzle to play optimally. So my style of Euro. But is it good? Stay tuned for the review of Gin. Onto a bit more of a banker now, at least in terms of the designer pedigree. This is the Wandering Towers, or the German version here, by Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling. 9 times out of 10, Kramer and Kiesling release great games. And this one is quite a novel idea, where you are essentially trying to deposit your little kind of wizards, which go around this kind of rondel, into this tower here. And the way you maneuver these things around are by either moving the individual characters or by moving the towers in which the characters stand on. And as you can imagine, as you go around clockwise on this kind of track, you can kind of land on top of people and cover up their pieces. Therefore, those pieces aren't going to be able to be moved unless the other player remembers which has been captured, and hopefully kind of re-expose that character from beneath those towers. Now, very silly stuff here. It's definitely a family weight, even like a child weight style game. There are some extra bells and whistles you can add in terms of these magical powers and things. But still, the crux of the game is super simple. Again, I have only played this once so far, so I do want to play it a few more times before I share my my opinion on it. But it's certainly unique, and that's what I kind of like. I've got nothing in my collection quite like this. Silly, but also quite distinct at the same time. So that is the Wandering Towers. Onto a couple of games that I have talked about on my recent ranking video. So Enchanted Plumes is the first one. This is you can see a small box card game about trying to basically build up these plumes of these peacock feathers. The top row that you build is going to be worth negative points, but everything after that is going to be positive points. It's just a hand management game trying to build as many of these as possible, score as many points as you can. You have some restrictions because the widest part of the plume determines the colours that you can build underneath it. And there's even like a bit of a shared market as well. So on my recent ranking video, I did put this one relatively high on that list. I mentioned that it just snuck below a commendation, but I can certainly see that changing. I have recorded some more detailed thoughts as part of a compilation review, but it's not a spoiler to say that I like this game quite a lot, and I can see it creeping up into accommodation for sure. It's just really good. That is Enchanted Plumes. We also picked up a copy of Blockers. So Blockers, another, I'd say family-friendly, almost abstract style game. You are limited on your options here because you have an arrangement of these tiles that look like this, which can be placed on certain locations on this communal board. So, for example, you can see the A's can go in the A row, the F's the F row. You also have numbers going across the horizontal axes, but also within the kind of grid you have shapes as well, like you've got the triangles and the clubs and the spades, and there's restrictions on where they can go, and it's all about trying to create as big of a group as possible, because the more separate groups you create will gain you points, and points in this game are bad, so you want to have as few points as possible. Now, I'm not sure if I will do a designated review of this one. I'll probably do it as part of a compilation. I'm not sure how much demand there is to hear my thoughts about blockers, but it's actually pretty good. You know, again, I'm not shy about sharing my thoughts on this one, because it's relatively obscure game, but it's fun. There's some little tricks here as well you can do to to take other people's pieces off the board and end up gaining negative points, or positive points, which is negative, in this game. And it's a game of micro decisions, really. I think, the difference between the winner and the loser in this game is so minuscule that that it's kind of, you got to roll with the punches and just hopefully it works out in your favour. So I don't think the decision space is huge here, but it's still quite fun and relatively interesting game. And I like it, and it's definitely better at those higher player counts. So that is blockers. On to the next one now, which is a prototype copy of a game called Isla, or Isla. I'm not quite sure how they want to have the game pronounced. In my review, I've called it Isla, and I've yet to release my review. But this one is an upcoming Kickstarter roll and write style game, as you are going to be... In fact, there's no artwork on the back because this is a prototype. But I'll see if I can pull out an example of the map here. So essentially you are going to be travelling around this map, visiting different kind of hotspots to refresh the dice that you've used. So it's all about trying to keep going as long as you can to escape the island and hopefully get some positive points. You're collecting tokens and cashing them in against contracts. So pretty simple stuff. Again, I will share my thoughts on a review, which I'll release probably within the next week. So stay tuned for that review, and also the Kickstarter if you like roll and write games and exploration games in the style of games like the Trails of Tucana. This is the same kind of thing. So that is Isla. So thank you for the to the publisher for providing that one to me. And the last two games here are both kind of mainstream or kind of a mass market games here from the House of the Dragon Game of Thrones universe. So I wasn't actually aware that these games existed. I think they just popped up randomly on my feed or something, because I am such a huge Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon fan. I pretty much bought these without the hope of them being good. Just wanted them as collector's items, really, because there's not too much House of the Dragon merch out there. But the first one here is called The Sky of Fire, which is a deck building style game. You're trying to move your pieces along this track and get to the Iron Throne before your opponents do. You've got a dragon as well as a character, collecting more and more efficient cards to trim your deck and hopefully race to the finish before your opponent does. And the second one is one that I haven't played yet, called The Seat of Power. Now, this is probably more what you'd expect with a game in this universe. It's kind of more of an area control style game, spreading cubes around the map, attacking the main fortifications, trying to gain control of them, sailing around, all the kind of stuff you'd expect with a dudes on the map style game, with some card play as well. Again, I've not played this one yet, so I can't really testify if it's going to be good or not. I mean, I can't imagine they're going to be great, but this one here, the Sky of Fire, was better than I thought it was going to be, because it actually is quite functional and it's quite a nice little introduction to deck building. This one, I've read the rules. Some parts sound really promising and some sound pretty predictable, but I suppose the jury is still out, because in practice it could be really good or it could be very bad. But I don't really care either way, because I'm going to keep hold of these ones just for my collection. So that is Seat of Power as well as Sky of Fire. So that's it. That's all of the games that I have picked up this last month. So not too many. I know it shouldn't be too much of a burden to get these played and reviewed for you guys. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel and check out my other content too. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.